Take your deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Allow yourself to get centered and receive the gratitude and appreciation as I welcome you to a podcast hosted by yours truly, Sam Walker Inspo. Allow me to introduce you to Can I Talk My Shift? The podcast where we talk all things internal and how to shift your views on self. I'm talking the inner workings that you've denied for far too long. Now we can accept a new level of accountability, which ultimately allows you to show up more authentically in all aspects of life. Remember, everything revolves back to self. Inhale, exhale, and let's go. Yo, what's going on? Welcome to the Can I Talk My Shift podcast. The podcast where I converse about how you may or may not be showing up in space, and how to identify blocks that keep you from representing yourself in the most authentic way. I'm your host, Sam Walker Inspo. That's INSPO, all capital letters for show. And, coming into today, after witnessing mental and societal lynchings over social media the last few weeks, after thumbing through multiple worlds of distraught surrounding relationships, the environment, identifying deception running rampant within the spiritual community, the outside world, and, I've come to realize for myself that the need to find out who I really am is a non-negotiable. All right, a non-negotiable. Unearthing what foundations/principles my ancestors operated off of is a top priority in my life. There really is no other way to put it. There's so much disorder and chaos in the inner world and the outer world. It feels fucking maddening, yo. But yet, even with these realizations, therein yet lies another barrier that we lack the understanding of. And it may be the most important feature we have in regards to community building, relationship building, family building, trust building, etc. Just building and growth overall. I'm talking about communication and connection, yo. That's right. Connection within ourselves, connection with others, communication with ourselves, and communication with others. I got questions like, are we having conversations to really learn/connect and get answers? Or are we conversing because we're looking for a way to demean the other person within our own mind? Do we get a sense of relief in knowing that the other person is going through a hard time and we're not, so we put them beneath us in our own mind? I've been guilty of it before. I'm just going to come out the gate. I'm not capping, no shape, way, or form. Questions like, how much genuine dialogue/conversation can we say we've actually had throughout this year? Where do we position ourselves energetically and socially while engaged in conversation? I have a lot of conversations with some high level people, and I ain't gonna lie, I've felt beneath, not less than, but beneath, because there wasn't really a lot of work that I could show to make me feel like I belonged in the room. But we'll touch on that later too. Do you divide up your friends? Do you divide your friends up in tiers based on their bag size? That's crazy. Do you ask people what they do for work because you want to know if you can collaborate in some way, or so you can know how much respect you should have for them. See, that's not a way to connect for me. And that's like some of the downsides to communication as well. But on today's episode, it's very, very special because we have our first ever guest here on Can I Talk My Shift? And we're going to touch on all of this. And I feel she's the perfect person to start off with, especially with our topic being that of communication and connection. Why wouldn't we invite a woman who's answered the call of many when it comes to communicating the essentials in discipline and mindset? I would like to introduce to you all today former All-American and Hall of Fame track star hailing from VA. She was a triple jump and long jump specialist. She ran the 60-meter hurdles indoors and the 100-meter hurdles outdoors, paving a career during her time at UNC Chapel Hill. From there, she went on to train professionally and then became an assistant coach at Winston-Salem State. Ultimately, she identified a need for helping female student athletes with transitioning into life after sports. This inclined her to start her own business and become a discipline and mindset coach. She's been highly sought after on all levels, from high school, the collegiate level, and professional levels, keynoting events such as the Wake Forest Health, UNC Wilmington Girls and Women's in Sports Day, was a panelist at the Women's Wellness and Business Conference of Delaware, and was personally asked to speak with the Spring Valley High School's volleyball team in Columbia, South Carolina, just to name a few. She even created her own week-long virtual summit coined the Women's Discipline and Mindset Summit, 2 years strong. I would like to introduce you all to this beautiful soul named Lashawn Gee. It is so great to have you here today, love.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Really?
Yes.
How come?
Well, I've been following you for ever. Since the inception of this podcast, I've downloaded every episode. I've watched every episode and been intrigued the entire time.
That's good to know. That's really good to know. And that feels great. How are you feeling today?
Today, I am feeling, I used to say, I'm fine, I'm good, just to keep the talk going. But, today I am feeling a little bit lethargic. I'm still in good spirits, but I cannot deny what my body is feeling.
Got you. You gonna work through it?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's
especially
awesome.
For the Can I Talk My Shift podcast.
That's so dope. Let me break the ice real quick and just say or ask this question. What's one thing that you would like to gain clarity on this week in your life?
That's a good question.
It could be anything.
One thing that I would like to gain clarity on this week.
This week,
I'd like to gain clarity on continuing to let go and being able to communicate that in a way that actually shows up in my world.
There's an episode for that.
There is. Oh, is there?
There's an episode for that. Just like there's an app for everything, there's an episode of Can I Talk My Shift for that. Oh, no, that's awesome. That sounds amazing. And I really hope that you do find some new tools to use. And then hopefully you can come back and share them.
I think I will. I think this dialogue between us is going to unpack a lot.
That sounds awesome. So I know you said you've been following the show since its inception. And I typically have 4 sections I cover along with one question per section, right? First section, the inner world relating to you and I. The second one, the outer world relating to your personal relationships. The third, outer again, but mainly the business relationships. And then the fourth section, answers and shifts, right?
Okay.
Okay. But today is all about communication and connection. So there will be a lot of dialogue between us. So how's that sound?
Hey, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So we're going to kick it right off. Connection versus communication. Section 1, the inner world. I'm going to ask you this to start it off. Is the foundation of your communication connection or something else? Is the foundation of your communication, your style, your reasons why you communicate, connection or something else?
That's a good question. Okay. So what is the foundation of my communication? Is it connection or is it something else? So I think that in previous years, it was something else. Whether it was listening to just offer solution, I just want to fix it, whether it was a friend or family member, or if it was just listen to respond. But now I've been doing a lot of work from an inner place, and I believe that it has transformed into connection being the foundation of communication, because I have seen how much more rich my communication can be because my connection is rich.
That's a bar. You starting off with bars already.
Listen, I don't have many, but we can start there.
Okay. No, that sounds amazing. It sounds like you just said that you've had a lot of growth, even while being a coach. It shows your vulnerability, right? Because no
Yes.
coach is perfect. And I think the quest, or I should ask you, the quest of being a coach is always being able to learn and understand and then share and give, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And you're always putting yourself in that vulnerable space because you want to be a human to the people you share that information with. And that's hard.
Yeah.
Whether they're younger than you, whether they're older than you, whether they're the same age as you, anyone that you're sharing information with, there has to be some vulnerability in it. And especially as a coach, you have to be able to show that vulnerability to people in order for them to trust you.
Okay. So then let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
If there has to be vulnerability, is our ability to connect with others tainted?
So, yes, I think that absolutely our connection has been tainted. Look at social media. Everybody is behind a screen all day, every day. The pandemic had us to ourselves or with, family members that we were quarantined with. Nobody was actually connecting in a way that fostered healthy communication because you just wanted to survive.
Right.
I think there were some people who obviously have grown because of the pandemic, relationships, things like that. But it also went the other way. So to answer that question, just flat out, our ability to connect with others has been tainted because we have put ourselves behind the screen, and a lot of us have had audacity and And we believe we can say whatever we want to say without any tact.
I absolutely agree with you. I agree that our ability to connect with others is tainted. But before I go into maybe the reasons why I feel they are, I want to ask you another question, and then we can kind of converse about it. How did you identify barriers in your ability to connect since you understand that it's tainted?
Oh boy. How did I identify barriers in my ability to connect? I mean, I think for me, I just noticed that I was even more awkward in my communication because it was either one-sided and one person was talking way more, or I was taking over the conversation. I definitely started to notice where I just wasn't answering questions, and that actually I learned through the growth processes I've been in. That was a place of work for me when I was younger. I just didn't ask questions.
Okay.
So, yes, when I noticed for myself, hey, I'm not as open. I don't ask as many questions as I probably should to gain understanding, to gain the connection and grow the connection. I knew something was wrong, and I made the conscious decision to change that.
Wow. So is that from a personal standpoint, or because like you identified a lot just now? So that's just you in conversation with people in your personal relationships, like family, or is that in your client dialogue? What is, you know what I'm saying?
I think it was both.
Okay.
I think it was both because when I would communicate with family and friends, it was almost like, well, I already know what's going on with you. I see you online, just like everyone else who you see a friend online, you see a family member online, and you think oh, we're caught up. I know what's going on with them. But when you actually are on a Zoom call with them, FaceTime, a regular phone call, you realize, oh, I really don't know what's going on. And you have questions, but you can't even formulate them in your mind because it's either something you feel like you've already seen online, or you just you don't have the thought process to formulate healthy, regular dialogue. But it's also that way with clients. So when you're in front of a group of people, when you are in front of a one-on-one client, as the quote unquote expert, you already have what you know. You already know that you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing in that way, but then to actually share that with others, to break it down so that other people get it, I think it brings an air of imposter syndrome. And so I know we haven't gotten this far, but I know that was a place for me that I realized, okay, I have to do better in the department of just communicating my point, because I already know the information. But if I can't deliver it in a certain way that others get it, it's going to come off fraudulent. That's what I used to think.
It's funny that you say that, because when I'm thinking of connection and communication, two totally different things. They can't exist one without the other, right?
Right.
But connection, to me, the foundation of it is vulnerability.
Yes.
And with communication, it's almost like fear. And I'm going to explain why. And you tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
In order for me to connect with someone, I have to understand my right, my want, and my need to be vulnerable.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I'm communicating something, normally when I have to communicate, it's typically got like a negative connotation.
Why?
So I gotta like, all right, so if I work for a company
Mm-hmm.
and they expect me to communicate something to them properly through the chains of command, or we'll just take the military, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
right? I couldn't really connect with the higher ups, though that was always my purpose in communicating. I always want to build a connection with you.
Right.
So when I'm just communicating without or trying to take out the connection piece, it's like a flat line. It comes out very robotic.
I see.
And then in that spawns fear, because it's like I can't really be myself in how I want to communicate this to you. So I got to do it maybe the other person's way, which then now I'm feeling imposter syndrome because I can't be me, because my foundation is connection, which is vulnerability. I can't be vulnerable at the works, in the workspace. So now I gotta be this other person, and now my shit come off a little left. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So with you, and you first saying that, your foundation is connection, and then you said that you felt imposter syndrome. Can you really agree with me on that? Where if connection is the foundation, then there should be no fear in your communication.
That is true. It's so true. And it's such an oxymoron.
Right.
It's such an oxymoron. And, remember before it was just communicate to, and this may be a vulnerable point for me, communicate to be right.
Absolutely.
Communicate to win.
Yeah.
That's where my thought process was at a point.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing out of that, I learned being robotic was not my authentic self.
Right.
So I had to embrace vulnerability.
Okay.
And that meant I had to discipline myself to see the importance of vulnerability. Again, it makes me human.
Mm-hmm.
It humanizes me to people. It makes me feel like when I am speaking to someone, I'm not over them, but I am your peer. I'm helping, we're going to do this together.
Mm-hmm.
Not you do what I say, because there's one person I know for a fact who's not perfect, and that's me.
Right.
And I never want someone to think that I'm sharing information with you because I know it all. This is what I know so far. Maybe it'll help you.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of vulnerability in even being able to say, I don't know it all.
Right.
I don't know it all. And the imposter syndrome that you're talking about, it still creeps in because there's still some fear there. And I think everybody experiences that.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody experiences the imposter syndrome at some point in their life when they are afraid to be themselves.
Okay. I can see that. I felt it, even with the podcast, right? Like, I'm in no shape, way, or form the healer.
Right.
I'm a healer. And there's been people that have been on this journey way longer than me, right? But one thing I realize is as long as I'm vulnerable, the audience will come. The people that I'm supposed to connect with, I'll connect with them. But if I'm just communicating something that I haven't maybe learned or learned to understand, to embody it, then it's like communicating through a megaphone on a set. And I say that because I feel like when someone has a megaphone on a set, it grabs your attention and makes you jump. It's like fear, like, oh, and that's not what we want.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because the person who's usually holding that megaphone usually ain't got no pull anyway. That's their job, is just to get everybody attention. And that's not, you know what I'm saying? That's not what we're here for. So, well, let me move on to section 2 then. Because we spoke a lot about the inner world.
But I think that's good. I think speaking about the inner world is perfect because a lot of people don't spend time there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%. We've had to spend a lot of time in the inner world. And because we spend so much time communicating with others, trying to be quote unquote perfect in business, whether it's for ourselves or somebody else. And we don't spend any time on ourselves.
Right.
So I think that section is perfect to be able to spend just a little bit more time on, because people, I think the perfect people who listen to this episode, this podcast show, need to know and be given permission in sort of a way that says, hey, it's okay to spend some time on yourself. It's okay to be fearful and be vulnerable anyway.
Yeah.
You could be fearful, but you know what? When you're vulnerable, you are your most authentic self.
Damn.
And that's the beauty in it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So then for section 2, outer world, personal. You with me?
I'm with you.
Okay. I'm going to start it off with this question. How much genuine dialogue / conversation can you say you've actually had throughout this year? Based on what we talked about in section 1, I'm putting you on the spot. How much genuine dialogue / conversation can you say you've actually had throughout this year?
I haven't talked to a lot of people.
Really?
I mean, with my coaching career, yes, I talk to people a lot, but I also announce. So I'm talking to people, but I'm really just sharing information, not for there to be a dialogue. So I can probably count on one hand how much dialogue I've had, like how many people I've had true dialogue with. That's probably about 6 people, 7 maybe.
Well, that's kind of crazy that you say that with announcing then, because it just kind of proved my point of you communicating with no connection.
Yes.
So it feels robotic. You got your announcer voice that everybody knows you for and loves you for, of course. But longing for maybe a connection through that, you know what I'm saying? You don't have it, or you didn't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes you feel like you're talking with people. It makes you feel like you're connecting with people, but sometimes it gets lonely in that little press box.
I feel it.
Even when you're with other announcers, it's like you said, it's so robotic. You know, you are giving information constantly and you're talking sometimes for hours, but you're not really connecting with anybody. And I'm just getting that revelation today. It's like I've been talking a lot this year, but I haven't been connecting a lot this year.
And that right there is the reason why I do the podcast. We gain clarity and we give clarity. You know, I think for me, it's the same thing. I've had a lot of communication that's going on throughout this year, but to say that I've connected, not so much.
Right.
You know, I did a lot more listening than talking this year too. I've always been when I say talker, I'm not saying it in the sense that somebody would say like, "Oh man, you all talk." It's like, no, I am a talker for a reason. Communicator, connector. So I would say that the authentic connections that I had, or that I have, I'd say, have grown. I've learned to try to limit my authentic connections so I can just water those instead of maybe having like 15 and try to make them all off. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I need to connect with 45 motherfuckers this year. It's like, boy, you just communicating, man. You just talking that talk, fam. You can't, ain't no, I beg to differ too. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that who, you know, who are running companies, and they say, you know, get out here and network your ass off, right?
Right.
It's cool. And I probably should save this for the next section, but I'm going to just say it here real quick. You can communicate all you want, and you can get 45, 50, 55, 100 numbers, but you're not connecting with 100 people.
At all. You'd be lucky if you connect with 5. I think that's, that's my thinking. Earlier this year, I attended a conference. I think it was in February, at the beginning of February. It's called Impact Weekend. And it's great. And there's literally a couple 100+ people in attendance. And I met a lot of people, but I didn't connect with all of those people. And I don't think it's realistic for anybody to connect with that many people.
Well, let's bring it back real quick. Let's dial it back one time. So genuine dialogue or conversation, not so much.
Right.
Just from what we spoke about in section 1. Well, but since you help so many people, I'll ask you this. Do you find yourself in coach mode while talking with friends and family? And if so, then does that hinder a connection, do you think? Or does it enhance a connection in that communicative style?
It depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to my mom, she'll let me know what ailments, things that are going on, doctor's appointments she's attended. And of course, my family and friends know that I used to be an athlete. They know that, I had a fitness business. So they know that I'm immersed in that information. So when I share with them, I do find myself coming from a coach conversation because I'm the baby of the family. So I want them to trust what I'm saying. Now, like I said, when I talk to my mom, I do find myself more of you should try this. Try this and let me know what you think. But when I'm talking to, say, my older brother, we can have more of a dialogue because he also feeds me. Whereas when I'm talking to my mom, she storytells and we communicate in that way. But when it comes to solving a problem or something needing a solution, I find myself going into that mode. But if I'm having that same conversation with my older brother, it just feels more like we're talking with each other. And I don't know if that's because he's an entrepreneur also, and he has to solve problems in his industry. And so we have that back and forth dialogue. But there are times, depending on the person, I can find myself coach mode. And to be honest, I'm trying to break out of that. I'm really trying to break out of the being in coach mode, work mode, solution-based mode. Like, I just want to listen sometimes. I just want to be able to display my empathy and have that conversation versus we're talking and you're asking me questions because I have the information,
Right.
and I can solve the problem. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I was going to say, as you were talking, I'm thinking maybe you had more of a connection with your brother this year, but you communicated more with your mom.
Yes,
And
that's a
not
perfect
bad thing.
analogy.
It's just like, kind of going back. If the title is, connection versus communication, you can kind of see it now in your life. I had that too. Had that a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
With family or friends or both?
Definitely the fam. I got a lot of family, and so they're always on the move, always moving. I got some entrepreneurs in my family, first generation entrepreneurs in the family that I know, out of the generations that I know. Now, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, but I've never met them before. All we have is photos and pictures. I don't even know their style, what their style was like. If they was lightweight, they was heavy with it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But for the family that I do have, a lot of them have really good careers. The older ones are retired, and so when we communicate before, it was like I'm communicating, but I'm not connecting though. I'm feeling real light, real shallow, real top, heavy. You know what I'm saying?
Like surface level conversation.
Right. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to make it a case in point for myself to dig deeper, maybe communicate less, but I'll connect more.
I like that.
You see what I'm saying?
I like that.
Yeah. Because I felt like if I'm calling all the time, I'm not really connecting. So then if you kind of, if we don't speak for a certain amount of time, then when we do talk, it's like it just comes out. It just flows. Connection flows.
Right.
Right? Because that's what I want. That's probably what they want too, but we don't really know how to gauge that.
That's brilliant. And I never thought about that because I look at it from the sense of, I haven't talked to my mom all week. I need to call her, or I need to call my sister, or I need to call my best friend. And I've always been a proponent of like staying in communication, because I do feel like even when there's light communication, it can be a segue to the connection. Now, I still feel like connection is the foundation.
Absolutely.
But I never liked when people said, oh my gosh, we could not talk for weeks or months or years, and then we could just bounce back like nothing ever happened. And while that may be true, to me, it's like, but what are you holding on to? Like, what are you coming back to? Because there's a whole span of time that you didn't connect. And you don't know what that person has been up to except via social media, right? The highlight reels. You don't know what challenges that person may have been facing through that long stretch of time. So I do believe that sometimes that light connection, hey, just checking on you, text, call, whatever is necessary, but it's not going to keep the connection. You still have to nurture the relationship and the connection.
Nah, I agree. I agree with that. I also feel too like nurturing the connection. If we take the route of self accountability in our connections, it forces us to understand vulnerability, right? Like if I don't talk to my homeboy for, I don't know, maybe like 5 months, which it hasn't never really been the case. We normally probably go, I think the most, if they like anybody I'm really, really close to, we probably maybe go a month and a half without any kind of dialogue. But it's usually like, a text or something like that. But whenever we talk, it's a connection.
Right.
And I make sure that I at least open myself up to do that. Not saying that holds any weight against the other person, right? But it doesn't matter. Homeboy, homegirl, family member, whatever. There's an ebb and flow. There's a dance.
Right.
So I got to make sure motherfuckers ain't got 2 left feet. You know what I'm saying? We still dancing out here.
Exactly.
The right way. Which kind of leads me to this thing too then with outer world, personal. And I would definitely want to get your input on this because you communicate a lot and now you're kind of maybe seeing I've connected for sure, but maybe not as much as I thought I did.
Yeah.
Right? Connection to me and communication, it's such a spiritual act. And I don't think that people really look at it in that manner. But It's so spiritual. Because to have a thought in my mind and then translate the thought through body language, for that thought to come and hit my vocal cords and then come out. And then as it comes out, sound comes out my mouth. It goes out into the atmosphere of the world, air, molecules, all of this shit. Hits your ears. You process it however your brain processes, regardless of my mannerisms, regardless of my tone, depending on how you feel, how your spirit feels. Digest it. Then you either react or respond based on you, based on your experiences. If you know what I'm saying? So then now you come back and it's an ebb and flow. But there's so many parts of the process that I feel like can get jumbled up. Some of them break down. Some of them not running right. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are tainted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a spiritual like cycle for me. I've always been intrigued by the dialogue. I'm always reading people. I'm always reading the tonality. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to ask you if you do think that dialogue is spiritual, communicating is spiritual, connection is spiritual in a way, and there's so many barriers when you don't really know yourself or when you don't know the foundation you're operating from. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then how important is it to maybe get connected in some way with self through spirituality?
Well, first of all, that was the best depiction of communication and connection, dialogue, conversation being a spiritual act that I've heard.
Okay,
But that's just me. That's just me.
That's dope.
But it's one of the best. It's one of the best depictions of dialogue communication being a spiritual act, because when you implement self accountability into it, it changes the game. Because no one in the history of ever, in my opinion, has taken the time in a heated conversation to have self accountability, to be able to take those sound waves that came through the air from the other person, take them in, dissect them, and say to themselves, this may not have been what this person meant. Maybe they didn't mean to say that in that way. Maybe later that comes up, but in the moment, they're definitely listening to those sound waves, breaking it down based on emotions, which we all know that feelings are not facts. They are valid, but they are not facts. And they take those words and do with them what they will under the guise of whatever emotion that they're in, that they're experiencing at that time. Is so clear for me now. Again, before I would have ever looked at dialogue being spiritual, the frequency of another person communicating with me, one, in a way that hopefully they want me to get it, but two, them being a vessel to have words come from their soul, come from the creator, funneling through them and communicating it so that I know or someone else knows this is coming from a place of love.
Right.
This is, I'm not saying this to harm you. I am simply having this conversation because I want to connect with you. And every conversation is not going to be happy and joyful. Some will be hard. Some will be, tough pills to swallow. But when we look at them from a place of self accountability and understand, where am I in the experience of this conversation? And how am I dissecting this information in a way that has me, one, feel safe with this person, that I can communicate with them, and it's not hostile, and I'm not misunderstanding them.
Yeah.
I don't think we take enough time. And all of this obviously happens in like milliseconds, right?
That's the part, you know what I'm saying, with
right.
it being spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Because spiritual consciousness doesn't really know time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think I touched on that. What episode? Was that the last episode? Intuition.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I say that because I feel connection breeds unity, and communication breeds division when it doesn't have the right foundation. Right. Because remember, you need both. Right. And in order for me to connect with someone, I'm going to be vulnerable. Now, the vulnerability doesn't have to be sad. You know what I'm saying? Right. The vulnerability is just being open to tell the truth. Whatever that truth is, hey man, check it. I ain't really like how you did that. You know what I'm saying? What you said, it really made me feel like this. And I want to keep this connection so I'm not coming from a place of hostility. But I'm still being vulnerable, but I'm still being stern in my ways, demanding. Right. Respect. Right. Right. But if I want that tone, but then I communicate it opposite of what I feel, and I come off with my chest poked out and all this, you know what I'm saying? Then the other person misinterprets it, and then we lose the connection or we disconnect.
So true. It's so true.
So depending on how it's communicated, it'll breed division.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard for me to see which one someone should really focus on. I kind of put myself through like my own coaching.
Yeah.
I think as a coach, you probably do that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's like, all right, do I focus on being more vulnerable or how I'm communicating it? Because if you have an imbalance in either one, it can throw it off because one can't live without the other in my mind. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I just feel like, yeah, it was important to notate that the outer
Totally.
world personal and dialogue being a spiritual act.
Yes. And people need to know that. I mean, the same way, and this may be completely on a tangent, off topic, but the same way you connect romantically, sexually, is akin to how you communicate verbally.
How so?
So if you are simply trying to get with someone just for the sex, just because you feel what you feel, just because you want what you want, that's like communication. It's just an exchange of information. But if you are looking to have the spiritual connection that the act of sex brings, that's a connection. It's the same as a connection. Mm-hmm. So while everybody is out here communicating, both from the verbal side, sexual side, romantic side, nobody's really connecting. And that's why people in general, have the partners that they have, why they decide to have one night stands, why they decide to, I don't know, run their numbers up. I don't know. I just, but I'm just saying, just the act of just having sex, just having sexual partners for the sake of having them is like communicating. But deciding to commit to a person and utilize the act of sex as a spiritual connection and utilize it for the spiritual energy that it brings, that is the same as connection.
Discipline and mindset coach, everybody. Lashawn Gee. Give it up for her. She may even be going into sex ed. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
no, that was dope. That was dope.
Thank you. As
a water sign who feels everything and a Scorpio, 1111, 1111, make a wish. I can definitely attest to what you just said. I can definitely attest to that. And I feel like, too, that was one of the reasons why I was probably able to go on such a long running tangent like I did, disregarding, the importance of maintaining my sexual balance, my sexual energy, harboring that for myself.
Right.
Just giving it away so sparingly in those darker times throughout my life, right? But I feel like, everybody should be able to go through that. If you haven't gone through it, I mean, I ain't gonna say, make sure you go through that. You know what I'm saying?
We're condoning run up those numbers.
Yeah, but if you've been fortunate enough to go through, whole phase or things like that, and then come out, you're not gonna come out unscathed. I can tell you that. But you're able to transmute what you learned and then really, be down for yourself before you can be down with someone else, then building that self connection will ultimately allow you to communicate that to someone else. And then that connection will blossom more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just from personal experience.
And I mean, if I may, just seeing your evolution, it only happens if you want it to happen.
Right.
If you're open for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just kind of floating along in life, and you might not be running up the numbers anymore, but you're also not in the mindset of wanting to create connection because you haven't done that work with yourself.
Facts.
And I know that you have done the work for yourself.
Oh, you know?
I know.
You know?
Yes, I know.
Oh, you know.
I definitely know.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, so let's skip to section 3. Let's slide over to section 3, outer world business then.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when your personal is aligned, right, your personal relationships, because you yourself are aligned,
Mm-hmm.
then everything kind of just follows suit.
Yes.
From you, right? So then let me start off this section with this question, and I'm going to be able to tie it all in.
Cool.
What's your take on when people ask someone what they do for work? Do you think like they want to know if they can collaborate in some way, or if they want to know how much respect they should give the person?
Oh boy. This is where discernment, I think, my goodness, has to come into play, because I literally have been in, I feel like, networking situations where people have asked, "Oh, what do you do?" Because they want to know, are you worthy enough to be in my circle? Or maybe vice versa, if they don't understand their worthiness. Can I be in your circle? Am I worthy enough to be a part of your circle? And so, again, I think that's when imposter syndrome is probably riddling someone's mind and life. Because I do feel like, and I've had connections where when I learn what someone does for work, when I've asked the question or when someone has asked the question to me, it's because they do want to collaborate. They want to actually create a connection that spans through friendship and business. They want to know, how can I be a tool in your toolbox? How can you be a tool in my toolbox? How can we work together and, with the possibility of creating a friendship? I do believe some people truly want that. But boy, have I come across some people who literally, like, for clout's sake, can I be a part of the club, or are you worthy enough to be a part of my club? I feel that.
Yeah, I think everyone goes through this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We deal with it with that question. Like that question unlocks some spiraling thoughts before we respond. But what I've come to learn, and I'm still working on this, like this isn't something that I got down pat. But if I can just be vulnerable after that question and just really be honest about what it is, what I do, or what I'm working on.
Right.
Right. Or if my goal is to connect. So I understand in order to connect with the person right off the gate is to be charitable. Maybe not with money, but, with a thought. You know what I'm saying? That's like the way of royalty, kind of. You know what I mean? And so when someone asked me that question, or I used to ask that question a whole lot. And when people would ask me, it was like, how can I ask that question and then want to know? So it's like, all right, like, yeah, we on the same level. Or they come back with some shit. Oh yeah, I got like 9 hotels and a couple yachts and this and that. Like, what about you? And it's like, shit. I didn't think I was coming in here to put my dick on the table.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But honestly, a lot of the times that's where you said discernment comes in, because when you have things, it's not really bragging. You really telling the person what it is. But when you don't really have maybe the material things, or if you're just not confident in yourself, you'll take that as a challenge.
Right.
So there goes the barrier, right? The ego steps in, takes what the person spun back to you and flips it. So now you taking it the wrong way. So now you trying to come up with some shit to match.
Right.
But if vulnerability is the foundation, there's no need for it.
Exactly. This is the point where I think that more people, they skip over because they don't realize you can still be your authentic self, even if you're in that type situation, right? Where somebody is just running down the list of all the things that they have, right? And I learned a while ago, I don't technically ask, well, what do you do? I will ask a person, so what are you up to? Because that is a much more broad question, and it keeps them from, one, it opens up the space for them to be vulnerable.
Right.
But it gives them space that they know I don't have to just run the list off to this person. It's like, what are you up to? Oh, well, I got this going on. I have this going on over here. Sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make it. It gives them space to be human, to feel like I don't have to give you a list. I don't have to put my dick on the table, as you say. It's like, I don't have to do that. I can literally be authentic with this person and let them know what I'm up to.
Yeah.
I am in a space of transition myself. So when people ask, what do I do? It's like, I come back at them like, well, what do I not do? I do it all right now.
Open. Yeah. Yeah.
And I let them know, what I am up to, what I am working on. And it lowers the fear factor in me, and it increases the vulnerability and authenticity, because I'm able to identify exactly where I am versus with what I did, what I used to do, what I'm, working on, and hoping will happen. It's like, this is what I'm up to. And I'm enjoying it. And as long as I'm confident in it, then they're not going to look at me. And maybe this is a looking good conversation for myself. They're not going to look at me like, oh, she's less than me.
Yeah.
Asking people, what are you up to? Open space up for people to be themselves.
Wow. You're right. Absolutely, man. And I keep saying absolutely. I love this word. Absolute. Even though things aren't absolute.
Right.
No, I think that's a very genuine answer. You're a very genuine spirit too. Genuine soul. And so, well, let me ask you this with that. Does connection matter more or communication matter more in business?
I still think connection matters more.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I think when you're actually, well, as an entrepreneur, you're always working, right? It seems like you're never off. So you're always in some exchange of information. But I still think that at the end of the day, in business, you still have to have a connection. I think that with any coach I've ever worked with, at the basis of how we met, where we met, why I decided to utilize you as a coach in that period of time in my life, there has been a reason for me to utilize their services because there was a connection. That person created a connection. They made me feel comfortable. They made me really ask myself questions regarding whatever space and time I was in, what business idea I was working on. So yes, definitely, connection breeds unity. Connection is going to foster communication.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, I still battle with this one.
Yeah, with communication or connection in business.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, maybe they both hold equal weight. Maybe the goal shouldn't be to try to see which one supersedes the other, because there isn't one without the other.
Right.
In any facet of life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming to realize through our dialogue, our conversation. I think I've always wanted to be a connector and be connected.
Mm-hmm.
But what am I really communicating if the connections are half-assed? Right? So somebody come to me and they're like, yo, I need this. I'm like, oh yeah, I got a person for that.
Right.
And our connection is cool, but it's not that. You know what I'm saying?
It's not solid. It's not stable.
Fam, you know where I live, but you ain't got a key to my house.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, yeah, bro, I'll take you to the store, but you can't come over for dinner. I'll give you a ride home. You know what I mean? But you don't know my kid's name. The levels.
Right.
So sometimes I feel like we'll jump the gun, or I jump the gun on relationships thinking that it was one way, you know what I'm saying? But really it wasn't that deep.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that discord, at the end of the day, you got to show up with something for whatever connection you're trying to build right there, or whatever I was trying to build at that moment. And that's why I was like, damn, yeah, they both hold equal value.
Yeah.
In my opinion. If someone delegated something to me and I was actually working for somebody, I work for myself.
Right.
Now I've worked for people and I've worked with people.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I worked with people, it felt like I worked for them, even though we were working with one another.
Okay.
See? But it's all about communication. So I look at it kind of like connection will be authoritative, and communication can be subordinate sometimes in business.
I see. Okay.
And that's just lightweight. At the end of the day, I feel like you can't have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
You need them both in order for the union to blossom and be something that can ultimately impact.
Right.
Create change.
Right.
Whether that change be financial, on a humanitarian level, emotional level, energetic level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So let me ask you this last question then. I mentioned authoritative and subordinate. Where do you think you position yourself energetically and socially while engaged in conversation? So I'm gonna give you an example.
Okay.
All right. I'm talking to, I got a friend. Not a friend. Friend got a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Whole lot of money. Had a lot of money when I met him. Got a lot of money still.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a sense of feeling less than because they had money. Since I met them, they don't need me for nothing.
Right.
All right. Energetically, I will always put myself underneath in conversation. Right.
Okay.
And this is something that I've worked on. Maybe I let them get the floor more than they need to because I feel like they hold more weight.
Mm-hmm.
They've done more.
You think their money equals their experience?
Well, this was then.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you thought.
Right. Scenario 2, I got a friend. We both ain't had no money together.
Mm-hmm.
He ends up getting money.
Mm-hmm.
But we still eye level, even though he got money. Why is that so much different than me meeting a person who had money and we supposed to be friends? Why am I doing that to myself?
Right. Because that person is not doing it to you.
Nah, they just being them.
Right.
Right. And so it didn't really allow me to be vulnerable in the first scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be vulnerable. So I'm trying to communicate to make sure that I keep the connection alive. But I'm not being authentic though.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got my friend, my homeboy, came up, right? And we both been at the bottom together. And we could always be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Open, vulnerable, connected.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask you, where do you think I won't say where you position yourself, where you have positioned yourself energetically and socially while engaged in conversation with, we'll just say people that maybe, I don't like to say higher, more experience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? More experience with running their own show, their own business.
Yeah. I've been in those same positions as you. And funny enough, I've been in conversation and experiences, interactions, exchanges with both men and women who just have means. I mean, means on means. We talking 7 figures plus.
Dope.
But I've also seen myself in talking to some of those same people where I can be my authentic self. I feel comfortable. Like we're eye to eye, just like you said. I don't have that feeling of subordination. I don't have that feeling of I can't be in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm in a room with all these people who, on a tangible level, a financial level, you may have way more than me, but I fit right in. I've also been in the same position with people, men, women, whatever, where I don't know why I just didn't feel worthy. I felt like, oh, I shouldn't be here. Or I felt like when I talked with them, when we were in dialogue, that I would second guess what I would say because I wanted it to be the right thing to say. And I'm thinking, I've never thought about it before. So this is kind of an on the spot answer.
As it should be.
It's, oh my gosh. I've never thought about it before, but it literally had me stuck in my tracks stuttering over some of my words because I just wanted it to be the right thing and hoping that they would think I was worthy enough to be in conversation with. Wasn't asking for anything from them. It wasn't like I was coveting them. Like I wasn't envious. It wasn't like I was dying to just have what they wanted and I had a negative energy towards it. It was all me putting on myself this feeling that didn't exist. And I think that so many of us do that. We pull this emotion, we pull this fear, this imposter syndrome, this fraudulence on ourselves. We pull it out of the sky because nobody said you're not worthy. Nobody said you can't have that thing. Nobody said you don't deserve to be here. And yet, somehow we find ourselves in our heads telling a story that isn't true. And I don't know how I've done both. I've been able to do both, but yeah, and I can't even say why that happens. You know, maybe in another episode I can think about it a little more. But I don't think there's a time that I can specifically pinpoint and say, yeah, when I know I was feeling this way when I felt unworthy. I know I was feeling this way when I felt completely worthy and at the same level as those who tangibly, financially may have had more means than me.
That's a heavy load dropped.
Listen, we're talking about vulnerability on here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. That's a breakthrough.
Yes.
That's a breakthrough.
Yes.
Breakthroughs lead to takeaways, which leads us to section 4. Takeaways. The final section of the podcast. If you're still here, I appreciate you because, man, oh man, me and this one over here can converse about anything underneath the sun for as long as we need, as long as we want. So let's start off the final section with this question. What shifted for you as far as your approach to connection?
Self-accountability has shifted for me. I don't want to say that it was non-existent because I think we all have it. We all have the ability to tap into our self-accountability. It's just a matter of when we have the actualization and then we actually implement being self-aware, being self-accountable, and having someone else there, you know, maybe lovingly nudging us to be aware of our own accountability. That's one thing that has definitely shifted for me because when I am self-accountable, I am able to be vulnerable. I'm able to listen to the other person, and that creates connection.
So with connection being created, would you say your previous approach to connection, was it methodical and mechanical?
You know, I think this is where, again, might have to be another episode because we can go all day.
You want to come back?
I mean, if you will have me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can definitely work something out for sure.
But,
you know what I'm saying?
You know, I think my previous approach was very methodical, very mechanical because I was very much into the masculine energy that I carry.
Okay.
You know, we all have both. But, being the athlete, having some of my closest friends from high school and college that I trained with, most of them being male, I just grabbed hold to that, and I just was operating from doing and doing and doing. I think that now I have been able to tap into more of my feminine energy side and really embrace it, because it's not like it was never there, but now I'm able to just be. So whereas a masculine energy has you doing, the feminine energy has you being. And when you're able to be, you can be free flowing. You can be present. You can be creative. You can receive and then turn that into, something else that blossoms, i.e., connection, and be able to then nurture those connections that you create. So, yeah, I'm definitely more on the being side.
You said that you operated in your masculine and now you operate more in your feminine. Did you create the space, or was the space created for you to be able to operate, or was it a little bit of both?
Oh man, it was definitely created for me.
Okay.
It was created for me. And I guess me being able to see the space, I could step into it. And it allowed me to do more work that was geared towards tapping into my feminine energy.
Got it.
But yes, I mean, I'm not afraid to say that some people help people all the time, So yes, that was shown to me. And then once it was shown to me and I became aware of it, then I could do work on my own.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So then what have you adopted in your shift? Maybe like how has it affected the way that you communicate and the way that you connect in coaching, or just with those relationships that you named in the beginning? You said you had about 5 or 6 personal ones. Seeing that you were operating from your masculine way back when, and now you're fairly new to maybe operating in your feminine, what have you adopted? What are some key things that you've adopted in your shift?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I have adopted, the biggest key for me that I've adopted is letting go, surrendering. Yes. Yes. Because I held on to so much. Because if I go back into my, memory, into my Rolodex, I was doing all these things, and I didn't want to let go, because somewhere in my mind, that's who I was, all the things I did. But that's your masculine energy talking. And so when I talk to myself, I'm like, self, you don't need to hold on to all of that. Those are things you did, but that is not who you are. And so honestly, what this has done for me is help me to shift into actually being able to table my coaching business, because I found myself, as much as I love it, as much as I love impacting in the way that I did, I found myself doing all the time, just doing, and not being. Yes. And so being able to, it took a whole lot to just say, it's okay to table it. It's okay to do, that for a period of time. Just put it away for a period of time, and you can always come back to it. And when you come back to it, you may be even more evolved. And I can now tap into being my authentic self in what I'm doing next. So now I'm able to be of service to others. And I'm so excited about that, because when people ask you, what is your purpose? What do you feel like your purpose is? Do you feel like you've reached your purpose? For me, I've always said, I want to help people. I want to make somebody's day just a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, a little more yellow, if you will. And
that's your favorite color, right?
It is my favorite color.
That's dope.
So now I'm able to serve people in a way that I love, and it still lights me up. I don't have to be the main stage person. And ironically, I'm really excited about that. So we'll find out, hopefully, maybe in another episode, what that is going to be.
Ooh, she left y'all hanging. Cliffhanger. Nah, that's awesome. Yo, that's so dope. I mean, to see the growth that you've had, to know you as long as I've known you, and to be able to continue to know you and see you elevate and see you grow behind the veil, right? Behind what everyone else sees as far as just how beautiful you are as a woman, right? Showing up in your own skin. The conversations that we have are second to none. It's so amazing. And I'm just happy that people are getting just a taste of who your authentic self is. Not saying that you weren't authentic, but you've tapped into something different.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And it's just beautiful to see and be a part of, for real.
Thank you.
It is. It warms my heart. Definitely. So, final question in section 4. Is connection more important than communication? One word answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. How so?
I think I said it earlier, and
You said a lot.
I was proud. I did say a lot, but I was proud of being able to say this, is that connection breeds healthy communication.
Facts.
Because you can communicate all day and it could be chaotic. It could be traumatic for some.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a true and authentic connection, it's going to automatically breed healthy communication.
Yeah.
So for me, if I have that tie, that connection, then I know the communication is going to be A1.
Awesome. Quick recap. We touched on connection versus communication with Lashawn Gee, a beautiful soul. Section 1, the inner world, you. Section 2, the outer world, personal. Section 3, outer world, business. Section 4, answers and shifts or takeaways. And that concludes Can I Talk My Shift, episode 5 with Lashawn Gee. It was super dope to have you here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I really am so very grateful. This movement is bar none just magnificent. It really is. And I am so excited for the people to continue to see your light through this
Thank you.
mic. I'm so excited because it's a true movement.
She started off the podcast with bars and she ended with the rhymes. It's in there somewhere, you know what I'm saying? But no, thank you. And maybe we can do this again, you know, maybe we can make it like a monthly thing or more, you know, who knows? Who knows?
I'm down. You just let me know and I'm down. I was actually really nervous. Why? I was nervous coming into this. I don't know. But you definitely made me feel, you created the space to make me feel most comfortable. So thank you. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yo, you are welcome. Real quick, give the people a message to take with them for safekeeping.
Ooh, a little nugget.
Yep. One liner, whatever you got. Give them a blow. On the spot.
See the beauty in surrendering. See the beauty in letting go. Then and only then will you be comfortable and confident and able to be your most authentic self and shine for the world.
Oh yeah, you're good. You just keep them things tucked away, huh? You keep them. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. She was reading off a cue card. reading off a little flashcard. Nah, I'm kidding. Man, that was amazing. Thank you again. Thank you for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Yo, thank you for listening. If you're still with us, and I'm sure you are, make sure you all are subscribing to the podcast and following the show so you can stay up to date. Take a listen for you, then take a second to share it with someone close to you so you can strengthen your connection with them. And shoot me a DM on Instagram. My handle is at Sam Walker Inspo, INSPO, with your take on connection versus communication. And lastly, check out my website, www.samwalkerinspo.com. There, you can find more clarity content throughout my blog, the blog that turned into this podcast. All right? And I will catch you next episode. And I look forward to episode 6. To the outro. As we close out the podcast, I just want to thank you. Thank you for giving me your attention, your undivided. I really appreciate you, and I extend gratitude to you. From one heart to another. I hope you enjoyed Can I Talk My Shift? I hope in just these few moments of listening to my voice that you were able to shift out into a new perspective and you can move more authentically. Till next time, peace.